The Dawn of Destiny, June 6, 1944, D-Day. The early morning sky above Normandy hung heavy and cold, a canvas painted in shades of steel gray and ghostly mist. A biting wind swept over the French countryside, rustling hedgerows and scattering the acrid smoke of distant naval shellfire. The air throbbed with tension and the low, unceasing rumble of Allied naval bombardments hammering German fortifications along the coast. Explosions flashed intermittently in the distance, brief, fiery blooms that lit up the horizon in eerie pulses. It was a day that would be etched in history, and it began in a crucible of fire, chaos, and unyielding determination. Above the enemy-held fields and villages of Normandy, dozens of Allied C-47 Skytrains buzzed through flak-laced skies, their cargo doors yawning open to release their human payload. Among the nearly 13,000 American paratroopers plunging into the pre-dawn gloom was Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, part of the famed 101st Airborne Division. The Screaming Eagles. Trained for months to spearhead the liberation of Europe, these young men now found themselves hurtling toward the unknown, buffeted by icy air and anti-aircraft fire, their parachutes snapping open above the bocage-laced countryside below. Their mission was critical: to secure the key causeways and bridges that led inland from Utah Beach. These narrow corridors were the lifelines for the thousands of troops landing in Higgins boats on the coast later that morning. Without those exits, the amphibious assault could bog down under withering German fire. Easy Company's task was to ensure those causeways were under Allied control, no matter the cost. But the drop did not go according to plan. Like many of their fellow units, Easy Company was scattered across a wide area due to heavy anti-aircraft fire, low visibility, and hurried jumps. Men landed miles from their designated drop zones, some in flooded marshes, others in enemy-held fields. Equipment containers were lost, weapons were scattered, and entire squads were isolated. In the darkness and confusion, the carefully rehearsed plans disintegrated within minutes of hitting the ground. Yet out of that chaos rose leadership, grit, and sheer resolve. Captain Richard Winters, who had served as Easy Company's executive officer, found himself in command after his commanding officer was killed during the jump. Despite being alone initially and missing essential gear, including even his weapon, Winters did not hesitate. With methodical urgency, he began scouring the hedgerows, roads, and villages in search of his scattered men. One by one, under cover of darkness, he gathered paratroopers, some from Easy Company, others from different units entirely, until he had assembled a makeshift force. By dawn, Winters had organized a small band of soldiers armed with whatever weapons they could salvage: M1 Garands, Thompson submachine guns, and a few bazookas. Many carried extra grenades or bandoliers scavenged from abandoned equipment bundles. Despite the chaos of the night and the uncertainty of their position, Winters was calm, focused, and resolute. His leadership, honed through training and a deep sense of duty, now became the backbone of the mission. There was no time to wait, no margin for failure. The objectives had to be secured. Utah Beach depended on it. In the hushed stillness before the first rays of dawn crept over the hedgerows, Winters and his ad hoc team began moving. They didn't know exactly where they were, how many enemy troops lay ahead, or whether reinforcements would ever arrive. But they knew their orders, and they were determined to complete the mission they had been sent to do. Intelligence reports pouring in from frontline scouts and airborne recon units painted a dire picture. A well-fortified German artillery battery located near Brécourt Manor was hammering Utah Beach with deadly accuracy. The guns, 105mm howitzers, were calibrated and zeroed in on the beachhead, their shells exploding among the waves of Allied soldiers struggling to gain a foothold on the French coast. Every blast carved chaos into the advancing lines, endangering not only the initial assault forces, but the entire momentum of the invasion. The longer those guns remained operational, the greater the risk that the beach landing would fail, potentially unraveling months of planning and costing thousands of lives. For Captain Richard Winters, newly thrust into command amidst the confusion of the D-Day drop, the message was clear and urgent. He had no luxury of time, no reinforcements at hand. His small, makeshift group of paratroopers from Easy Company was all he had, but that would have to be enough. In a moment that demanded both audacity and precision, Winters made the decision to attack and eliminate the artillery threat head-on. Despite being heavily outgunned and outnumbered, he recognized that the success of the entire invasion sector might hinge on their swift and decisive action. The German position itself was a tactical nightmare. 4 105mm howitzers arrayed in a staggered trench network, concealed by thick Normandy hedgerows that both masked and protected the battery. The layout allowed the German gunners to fire, reload, and reposition efficiently while remaining shielded from observation and return fire. Defending the guns were infantry squads with machine gun emplacements, set up to deliver crossing arcs of suppressive fire that would tear apart any frontal assault. The entire setup had been deliberately constructed to resist just such an incursion. And yet, despite the formidable odds, the men of Easy Company did not hesitate. Their resolve was absolute. Each man understood the importance of the mission, the stakes involved, and the potential consequences of failure. In the face of overwhelming firepower and layered defenses, they prepared to strike, not because they were ordered to, but because their training, courage, and commitment to one another demanded it. Using the natural concealment of the thick Normandy hedgerows, Captain Richard Winters and his small detachment of Easy Company paratroopers moved with calculated precision toward the German artillery position near Brécourt Manor. The terrain was tight and claustrophobic, with visibility limited to narrow lines of sight between the tangled branches and earthen mounds. Every rustle of movement risked detection, and every step forward had to be deliberate. Winters, relying on both instinct and training, orchestrated a flanking maneuver, one that would bypass the strongest part of the enemy's defense and strike where they least expected it. He selected a small fire team, briefed them quickly, and led them himself toward the first gun emplacement. Timing was critical. As his team prepared to advance, Winters coordinated suppressive fire from the other paratroopers, who laid down a barrage that pinned the German defenders behind their positions. The enemy, momentarily disoriented by the unexpected flank fire, hesitated, and Winters seized that moment. His assault group rushed the position, moving low and fast through a hail of sporadic machine gun bursts and rifle fire. The attack was surgical and brutal, executed with the kind of clarity and aggression drilled into them since Takawa. In a matter of minutes, the first howitzer was neutralized and secured, its crew either killed or captured, and the trench breached. Recognizing the importance of speed and momentum, Winters didn't pause. He immediately began directing his men forward, signaling orders along the trench line and reorganizing their formation on the fly. The Germans, realizing they were under attack from within their own defensive network, scrambled to respond, but the initiative now belonged to Easy Company. Using the trench itself as a pathway, the paratroopers advanced with methodical aggression, moving from cover to cover, clearing corners, and engaging enemy crews at close range. Each encounter was a mix of chaos and discipline, with Winters and his men relying on small unit tactics and suppress and assault techniques to overcome each gun site. Despite being outnumbered and facing fortified positions manned by entrenched and prepared defenders, the paratroopers operated with remarkable cohesion and tactical brilliance. Their maneuvers were not random bursts of heroism, but carefully applied doctrine adapted on the fly to match the terrain and threat. Every man knew his role, every shot had purpose, and under Winters' calm yet forceful command, they continued the fight. not with overwhelming numbers, but with superior coordination, initiative, and resolve. After hours of nerve-wracking, gritty close-quarters combat amid the hedgerows and trench networks of the Normandy countryside, Easy Company had done the unthinkable. They had neutralized the entire German artillery battery at Brécourt Manor. Each of the 4 105mm howitzers, which had been pounding Utah Beach with deadly accuracy and threatening the lives of countless American infantrymen landing ashore, now lay silent and abandoned, either destroyed or rendered unusable. The area, once a fortified stronghold manned by determined German defenders, had become eerily quiet, littered with the debris of a hard-fought skirmish, shattered equipment, spent shell casings, and the still bodies of fallen soldiers, both Axis and Allied. The battle had been fought at uncomfortably close range. Within the narrow trench systems cut through the French countryside, Easy Company had engaged in intense firefights, at times fighting mere feet away from the enemy. Grenades exploded within enclosed earthen corridors, rifles fired at point-blank range, and the air was choked with the acrid sting of gunpowder and the screams of wounded men. In that confined space, tactics boiled down to reflexes, courage, and the strength of small unit cohesion. Communication was shouted over the thunder of rifle fire. Orders were gestured and barked through clenched teeth. Death was always a heartbeat away. The success wasn't achieved through brute force or superior numbers. Easy Company had been outnumbered and attacking dug-in German positions. Their advantage came from initiative, surprise, coordination, and sheer bravery. Captain Richard Winters, newly in command after the chaotic pre-dawn parachute drop, had displayed an uncanny sense of battlefield leadership, turning a disorganized start into a surgically executed assault. He adapted in real time, analyzing the German defensive layout and adjusting his men's approach accordingly. His leadership wasn't just tactical, it was inspirational. Under his direction, the paratroopers moved with a sense of purpose and discipline rarely seen in first combat engagements. The men of Easy Company, most of them in their early 20s, fought with a mix of fear, fury, and determination. They knew the stakes were enormous. Those guns weren't just firing blindly into the countryside. They were direct threats to their brothers-in-arms storming Utah Beach. Every shell that exploded on the sand could kill dozens. Every second the battery remained operational put more American lives at risk. That knowledge drove them forward, even as bullets snapped past their helmets and enemy fire kicked up dirt around their boots. Among the most remarkable aspects of the engagement was the calm underfire demonstrated by the young paratroopers. Machine gun nests were taken out with coordinated assaults. One man laid down fire while another moved forward to throw a grenade. After capturing each howitzer, Winter's men ensured it could not be turned against them again, either by destroying key components, removing firing pins, or turning the gun inoperable with explosives. The captured German crews were disarmed, some wounded, some still in shock from the speed and precision of the American attack. By the time the final artillery piece was disabled, the toll had been heavy, but the outcome was decisive. All 4 howitzers had been silenced. The threat to Utah Beach had been eliminated, allowing American units to push inland with greater confidence and fewer casualties. The impact of Easy Company's actions rippled beyond the hedgerows of Brecourt. Their mission became a textbook example of small unit assault tactics and was later studied in military academies for decades to come. For the men who lived it, however, the day's events were seared into memory not as strategy, but as survival. They remembered the noise, the blood, the fear, and the relief. The relief of still being alive, the relief of seeing the mission completed, the relief of knowing they had made a difference. In the days that followed, word of the successful assault spread quickly among the Allied forces. The courage shown by Winters and his men became emblematic of the tenacity and fighting spirit of the 101st Airborne. It wasn't just that they had accomplished the mission, it was how they had done it. With minimal support, against superior numbers, in hostile territory, and without hesitation. Captain Richard Winters emerged from the operation not only as a proven leader, but as a symbol of calm under pressure and the embodiment of effective ethical command. He had taken on the responsibility thrust upon him in the chaos of battle and executed it with unmatched poise. The men who followed him didn't just do so out of duty, they followed him because they trusted him. And that trust saved lives. The legacy of the Brécourt Manor assault became one of the most celebrated moments in the history of Easy Company. It stood as proof that even in the darkest hours of war, individual acts of courage and quick-thinking leadership could turn the tide of a larger campaign. Their actions not only saved American lives on the beach that day, they also inspired generations to come, proving that ordinary men could rise to extraordinary challenges when it mattered most. The assault on Brécourt Manor stands today as a shining example of battlefield excellence, often cited in the hallowed halls of military academies across the globe. It is not merely a tale of victory, but a study in tactical brilliance, decisive leadership, and the power of unit cohesion under the most harrowing conditions. From the United States Military Academy at West Point to international command colleges, the operation is dissected in classrooms and training fields as a case study in small unit warfare. Its relevance remains undiminished by time because at its heart lies a universal truth of combat. That initiative, adaptability, and the will to act can shatter even the most seemingly insurmountable defenses. The battle itself, while short in duration, encompassed every element that defines successful infantry tactics. It began with a recognition of the problem, enemy artillery hammering a vulnerable beachhead, and was answered with swift, decentralized decision-making. Captain Richard Winters, who had only recently assumed command under chaotic conditions, embodied the qualities of a natural leader: clear thinking under fire, a calm demeanor, and the rare ability to inspire confidence in those around him. He did not wait for orders or reinforcements. He evaluated the threat, assessed the terrain, and executed a plan with the resources immediately at hand. That decision to act boldly, with a fraction of the manpower that conventional doctrine might have demanded, became the cornerstone of a success that would resonate for generations. What makes the Brécourt Manor engagement particularly compelling as a learning model is how it encapsulates the essence of mission command, the empowerment of subordinates to exercise disciplined initiative within the commander's intent. Winters' men didn't simply follow commands, they understood the objective, believed in the mission, and took ownership of their roles in achieving it. Each soldier contributed beyond his assigned task, covering flanks, retrieving ammunition, providing suppressive fire, assaulting fortified positions, all while trusting his comrades to do the same. That level of trust and shared purpose turned a small band of paratroopers into a force capable of dismantling a heavily defended German artillery battery. The tactical brilliance of the maneuver, approaching under cover, using suppressive fire, clearing trenches methodically, neutralizing weapons systems, has been praised not only for its execution, but for its elegance. The operation didn't rely on brute strength or overwhelming firepower. Instead, it was a ballet of fire and movement, a demonstration of how discipline, training, and raw courage could achieve what seemed impossible. To this day, instructors use maps and diagrams of the engagement to teach aspiring officers how to balance aggression with caution, how to exploit enemy weaknesses, and how to lead in the fog of war. Yet beyond the tactical and doctrinal implications lies a profound human story, one of brotherhood, fear, duty, and extraordinary valor. For the men of Easy Company, Brécourt Manor was not merely a chapter in a textbook or a moment of strategic significance. It was a crucible of fire that tested them as soldiers and as men. They remember not just the enemy positions and the orders given, but the faces of their friends beside them, the thunder of rifle fire in their ears, the weight of responsibility pressing down upon them in those critical minutes. For them, it was personal. It was terrifying. It was life-defining. Many veterans would later speak of the mixture of fear and adrenaline, of hearts pounding in their chests as they sprinted through hedgerows and hurled grenades into gun pits, knowing full well that a single mistake could mean death. But they also spoke of extraordinary trust in their leaders, in their fellow soldiers, and in the cause they were fighting for. In that moment, in that fight, they were more than individuals. They were a unit. A brotherhood forged in war, driven not by orders alone, but by a shared commitment to protect one another and to accomplish the mission no matter the cost. That spirit of selflessness, courage, and determination would come to define the legacy of Easy Company. Their actions at Brécourt Manor went far beyond the tactical success of knocking out 4 German howitzers. They saved lives on Utah Beach, enabling the larger invasion force to press forward with fewer casualties. They influenced the outcome of D-Day in ways that few actions of such a small group could. And perhaps most importantly, they set a standard for what soldiers could achieve when properly led and wholly committed to one another. As the years passed, and as surviving members of Easy Company recounted their experiences in interviews, memoirs, and documentaries, the legacy of Brécourt Manor only grew. The operation came to symbolize the very best of airborne infantry, courage in the face of chaos, ingenuity in the face of uncertainty, and victory against all odds. Historians, military strategists, and soldiers alike have recognized it as a template for future generations. It continues to be a rallying point for teaching battlefield leadership, especially when resources are scarce, time is short, and the enemy is entrenched. But for the veterans themselves, the legacy is not found in medals or accolades. It lives in the memories they carried, of the sounds, the smells, the split-second decisions, and the heavy weight of comrades lost. They remember the sheer rawness of the fight, how close the bullets came, how their hands trembled as they reloaded, how they pressed forward not because they weren't afraid, but because they knew they had to. The bravery they exhibited was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. And so the story of Brécourt Manor endures, not just as a chapter in the annals of military history, but as a living tribute to the spirit of service, the power of unity, and the enduring impact of courageous leadership. It is a reminder that even in the darkest hours of conflict, ordinary men, when called upon, can rise to extraordinary heights, and in doing so, leave a legacy that echoes far beyond the battlefield.